Sports.
Welcome to Best Boys, Mr. Anderson. An amateur film study podcast for the average Joe, the buffest buffs, and the cringes binges. I am your host, JP, and I'm joined by my brother, professional Hollywood videographer,
Neo. I am the one. How may I help you?
What do we have on the docket today, Neo?
The world is a lie. The Matrix. It's everywhere. The wind that you feel, the sewage that you smell. It's all just a construct of the mind.
There's a lot of there's a lot of enunciation in the Matrix. Everybody speaks with perfect diction.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne probably has the best, just, I don't know, not accent, but just like dialogue, like dialect of just delivery of anyone in a movie. It's so just, you just want to believe and listen to everything he's saying.
We're gonna talk about that because I feel like there was a difference in his performance from the first film to the second film. But yeah, we are entering the Matrix, not to be confused with the PS2 game of the same name. And that's the thing about the Matrix. You know, you got to remember it's a multimedia, franchise, and it's not the first to do it. Star Wars, obviously, in the 90s really became a multimedia juggernaut with the video games and comics and books, but this really tried to just dive right into that as well. But before I even get into that, let's talk about the original, the Oh Jesus, the number one.
99.
Come back to 1999. Enter the Wachowskis, Lily and Lana. I will say, we're just gonna jump right into it. I feel like the Matrix is our entry point for the Wachowskis, so why not just talk about it? This is one of my, I think for a long time I slept on how important this movie was to me, and kind of just because like I seen it so many times, and then you kind of grow. There's a fondness that has grown in me, and like I've wanted to go back and watch it since. And I finally have gotten the opportunity to. When I found out a new Matrix was coming, it was like the perfect reason to just let's wait till the new movie comes out, binge them all, and see how we feel about the franchise as a whole. But yeah, what do you think about the Matrix?
I think at the time when I was growing up, this was like the coolest thing in the world. I remember cutting out an ad. Me and my old friend Jordan cut out an ad in a magazine for one of the Matrix Reloaded phones, like the newer ones, that did like the pop out thing, and we just wanted to feel cool. Honestly, it curbed my entire desire for cell phones in general as a kid because I just thought it was so cool.
Oh yeah, you were. I remember that you were really into cell phones, even when. Like you were trying to find old ones that looked like the Matrix phones.
I just thought it was so cool, like the in and out, like using the phones as a form of like a gateway, an exit, was so interesting. But a lot of just I'm realizing after watching these movies, just like a lot of like love and affinity for action and anime definitely culminates with this movie.
It's more than just that, but that I think are the two obvious ones. I would say
rewatching these, I was just doing it more from like now as I've been working in film for a decade now, and with these kind of eyes, it's been a few years since I've seen The Matrix, and it's been even longer since the Reloaded. But just so much of just how it's shot, the cinematography, is just so, you see all the inspiration from like different like kind of anime styles and everything. It's so uh interesting and just cool to rewatch and just see it, and just because there's so much of like filmmaking stuff that I love and want, and constantly talk to my friends about how just like encourage them to watch anime if they are DPs, just because it's such a weird visual and wild visual format that is so hard to replicate in film.
Like I said, I don't think it's just anime. I don't. There's a lot more going on here than just anime. Because I think if that's all it was, it would not be as special as it is. I think anime is a big part of it, though.
Mm,
If you listen to the stuff that they talk about in the makings of the Matrix, it's comic books and
mm,
80s and 90s action, John Woo flicks, kung fu flicks, Bruce Lee, Jet Li, etc. Um, Obviously the BDSM, leather fashion, techno,
mm,
industrial music. There's like a whole vibe curated here that has influenced so many other things since then, and it has kind of become like a joke to a point because it's been so overdone. It's like the edginess turned up as far as it can go while still being not it's not so ridiculous that you can't be into it, and it's just incredibly cool, and I feel like it plays to like the stuff that not just boys but like the edgy bro aesthetic, a
mm,
lot that you think about from the 90s and the 80s kind of build up to, and this was the culmination of all of these things, and into one. And yeah, the action, the shooting, the martial arts, the costuming, the coloring of everything. It's just iconic, and it can feel like I said. There's like a cheesiness that happens, and I think you really experience it with the sequels. But the first film is a perfect balance of all of that stuff. And it's really is a masterpiece of a film. It's
mm.
probably one of my. I'm reminded that it is. I think I forget to put it in my top films, but it is absolutely, possibly one of my favorite films ever made.
Yeah, I definitely put it up there in the top 10, if not top 5. Especially after rewatching, it just holds up so well. From like storytelling, line delivery. There's some things where I didn't realize that like Keanu Reeves has some like kind of not cheesy one-liners, but more like comedic one-liners that I remembered. Um, but overall, though, yeah, I feel like it gets better every time I go back to watch it.
Um, yeah, there's a lot going on, and it flirts with that action cheese,
Hmm.
without going too far. It's still like the lore is interesting, and like if you think too much about it, it kind of unravels a little bit with the machines and the energy sources and shit. But if you just
Hmm.
enjoy it for what it is, as this interesting sci-fi thing, the broad concepts are they are deep, and they can engage you on a deeper level, but it's also just a lot of fun on the surface, and I think that's why it works so well. And I think that's why the first one works compared to the sequels.
Hmm.
Like it has the balance perfected. It's not dumping exposition on you the entire time. It is a lot more showing than telling, and when they do tell, they try to show as much as possible with it.
Hmm.
The sequels don't do that. The sequels, you end up just having a 10-minute scene with a guy talking to you about and dumping all this lore
Hmm.
about the Matrix. And I wanted to bring this up, but if you have something that you want to say, just about the Matrix at broad. But I was thinking about, the oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Anyways, I'll just pass it back to you.
Well, I was gonna start doing deep dive, talking about specific things, just for the Matrix One, but difference wise, yeah, there's a total, um, not I wouldn't say like a genre shift or anything like that. It's definitely still feels like the Matrix for the sequel, but this what they how they do the pacing, and it just feels more like a dedicated world building movie.
Okay, I remember what I was gonna say. So with Star Wars, with franchises, with worlds, with lore. And I wanted to bring up the Star Wars and Dune and Lord of the Rings, and obviously just
Mm,
the hero's journey are definitely also influences on this as well. In terms of like the setting up the world and the deeper characters, the deeper lore. I see Dune a lot in the second movie with like the dance, like the cave dances and a lot of the
with the
Zion,
Fremen.
and the Zion, yes, and the Zion stuff. I never saw it until this time, and I'm really
Mm,
immersed in Dune right now, so I don't know if I would have noticed this otherwise. But I was gonna
yeah.
say that when you're really into a world, so Star Wars, the first Star Wars, you can include Empire Strikes Back too, but the first Star Wars is such a great film on its own that you are just interested in learning more about this world that seems so vast. There's so many, every background character is interesting. I want all those action figures, you know? But it wasn't
Mm,
just about owning the action figure, it was about like learning this deeper character in the world. And once you have that experience with the original film and it's like a 10 out of 10 film, I think that your standard, like you will watch a shittier product in that world because
mhm.
just for the chance to learn more lore about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, look at the Star Wars sequel movies. We all
Exactly.
saw those, and only to see because we wanted to see where everyone was and where the world is and all that, not
Exactly.
because they were good.
That's why the reboot shit is so lucrative.
Yeah.
If you can establish a franchise and establish a universe like the MCU, it makes everything must see. The FOMO, I don't want to miss what's happening in this world. I think that's how Star Wars, and this is in that saga of development of this technique, narrative
Mhm.
technique, is you get the MCU. The MCU is the extension of this, where everything is in builds on the world, and it's TV shows and movies and whatnot, and then you
Yeah.
have the big one where they all come together, and so that's how I feel about the Matrix. I'm bringing it back, and I'll wrap it up. That it with the Matrix sequels, like, yeah, they might not be as good, but the first movie is so fucking cool and so fucking good that I just want more, and I don't care if it's mediocre. It's because I love this world so much, it enhances its quality to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I was gonna say by the time I got through the Animatrix, I was just ready for all lore, regardless of what it was.
Absolutely,
I'm super into this. And I was to your point earlier. I was gonna say big budget movies like franchises are just now big budget television at the theaters because
absolutely.
even if the next movie is shitty, it'll still include one gotcha have to see thing that'll make you want to watch it. Even if it's not the whole movie, at least watch the clip of it later just to get like keep that info and it keeps baiting you on for the next one, hoping that it'll be good. But also they'll cliffhanger it or they'll teardrop
Yeah, I might
information.
learn a little more about the a character I like, and even the most popular shows. Game of Thrones is probably the main example. Is very much structured in a similar way, where it's this vast world with a ton of characters and a ton of plots interweaving. And
Mhm.
you might not be interested in this one storyline, but you might find out something about this other storyline because of it, and it keeps you hooked, and you're just hanging on. And I think that it starts with these kinds of franchises. And I mean, it goes back to books with stuff like Dune and Lord of the and Tolkien, even before
Mhm.
that, I think that's one of the earliest, at least Western examples. Um, but I don't know. That's where I'm at with the Matrix. Is I love this world. Um, but so that might create a bias for this. But I think the first film stands on its own, regardless, as an all-time great. Like, it is Star
Mm.
Wars level. Like, do you agree with that?
Um,
Original,
I
just
the
like A New Hope, original
versus the
Matrix.
Matrix.
Yes. Do you think
Yeah, I would
they're?
say it's
They could
on
being
that level of of mass media zeitgeist like taking over because it did influence a whole fashion and just era like half decade of just being into like cyberpunk and shit. Well, cyberpunk now obviously is huge still, but just like at that time, like I
it
mean, I
breathed
wanted to wear
new
trench coats and
it breathed
fucking
new life into it. And on the aesthetic, it created
yeah.
a new aesthetic around it, and
Exactly.
it synthesized things. But so, what about as a film? Not as just a cultural touchstone.
Sorry, I was coughing. But as a film, yeah, I would say because it created bullet time effect for movies going forward. Cinematically, for it being 99, this thing looks so farther ahead of its time, a la A New Hope with the special effects. Um, but, like, I watched this in 4K HDR, and it like looked like a modern movie just shot on film, because it still
There's
maintains like
some
that texture.
there's some CG, but none of it looks bad. It just like it doesn't look as good as it could be today if it was made today.
Yeah.
But that is it, and it is honestly barely any of those moments in the first film. The
Like
Sentinels
when
are
he comes out
probably
of the
the worst
pod.
looking thing.
Yeah, well, I was gonna. Yeah, the Sentinel's definitely the worst. But the scene when he comes out of the pod when he first wakes up and that big thing grabs him by the neck and unplugs him, like that still looked good.
Oh well,
Like
it's
that
all
looked on
mostly
par with
practical.
Reloaded.
Yeah, it looks.
Um,
It's like the main when the main thing you're seeing is like all practical. I think you're
mhm.
much more forgiving to the background because your eyes are transfixed on what's in
Yeah,
front of
like
you.
CGI it's better as a compliment than a necessity, if that
I
makes
think
sense.
that's why the Star Wars prequels are still watchable. It's not. I don't. Not in terms of like actual movies, but in terms of the CG. Like
Mm.
they've had life longer than the age than they should.
Which is
Yeah.
wild for that one because most of the prequel films are shot with like no real set. Like the chairs are real, but everything else is on blue screen.
Well,
Um,
they credit the Matrix trilogy and the prequel trilogy for like taking movie like technical
mm.
shit to the next level in the 2000s. Like
Yeah, like the prequels
pushing
just
the
really
boundaries.
pushed CGI as real far as it could go, and I feel like the Matrix just pushed what you could do cinematically from like everything from like when you have the Morpheus escaping the torture scene where it just has that slow motion bullet time zoom from Morpheus from the back and then runs up onto his feet getting shot like in the water, like stuff like that. Those angles like at the time it just couldn't be done, and they all these first time camera rigs just for this movie where it's all photo cameras in a ring to make the bullet time. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
100
yeah.
cameras all taking like the dude was talking in an interview I was watching about just doing all the math first and then having to work back from there, to try to get everything has to be mathematically correct or it doesn't work. It's just all these new techniques and stuff that became the forefront for the future, especially for CGI, doing like 3D photo scanning of people and all that stuff.
All right, but well,
Um,
you're talking way a lot about the technical, but as films, as movies, like as entertainment, not as a technical aspect. What
I would
as
say, well, I
films?
would say Star Wars has the more family broad appeal that The Matrix
I'm not
wouldn't.
asking about that. I'm not asking about a mass appeal. I'm asking about a movie versus a movie, A versus B. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yes.
are
I
they
think yes.
not that they one can't be better than the other, but are they on the same in the same conversation
I would
in
say.
terms of personal experience and just how you enjoy these movies? Sorry, I don't mean, but that's like the answer I'm trying to get out of you because
Yes. Yes.
I wondered this myself. I pondered this myself. Like, I think the answer is yes. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I think I would have immediately said no, but then I
Mhm.
had to dwell on it more, because Star Wars
Yeah.
is so important to kid me, and then Matrix is important to preteen, like a little bit older me,
Yeah.
and it's more adult, and it introduced me to more darker, bleaker art, where Star Wars is not bleak in any way, and where the Animatrix specifically, which we'll talk about, but all right, okay, that answered my question. So let's talk about the Matrix itself. I think, and this is one thing we haven't praised it for, is the cast is fucking perfect.
Mhm.
It's like top to bottom, the background people, the whole like the way everyone's stylized. I know I talked about the costuming, but like Joey Pants, our boy Joey Pants is back, um, and
Lenny.
and he plays Cypher, as we've mentioned in previous episode. Carrie Ann Moss, this is her and the height of her powers. Same with Lawrence Fishburne. This is probably his magnum opus, I would say. I'm sure he doesn't want to hear that, but as far as culturally and just in a phenomenal powerhouse of a performance. I would say he has the best performance of the film. It's
Hands
between
down.
him and Hugo Weaving, but I think Hugo
Yeah.
Weaving's a little cheesy. Got a little bit of more cheese, a little bit of more cheese in
He had a ham
and
sandwich before he started.
yeah, it's a little bit more, especially even in the first one.
Mhm.
But I think Morpheus has a much more much better balance. But yeah, the phenomenal cast. What anything you want to say about any of that?
I'm in full agreement. I can't imagine if Will Smith would have ended up casting this instead of Keanu Reeves. But
Oh my god, that would
yeah,
have been worse.
yeah, that was yeah. Apparently, Will Smith turned it down for Wild Wild West.
Oh yeah, I did know. I did know that. I saw that that YouTube video. Did I think he would have been all right? He does have a similar energy, not quite the
He's
same.
the ham-fisted king. He's the
But
cheese
if he
balls.
would have played it as like dumb, like how
Mhm.
Keanu plays it as dumb Keanu, and it's
Yeah.
perfect because you are being revealed this world because we are dumb. The audience doesn't know anything that's going on. And this movie's intro and like even past like the intro whole like act, the first act, we don't know anything about the Matrix. And it is very
Mhm.
confusing. So I watched it with Riss, my partner, and she um never saw any of the Matrixes before. And I kept my mouth shut. I was really good about it. And she was just like, we were so far in and she had no idea what the Matrix was yet. And it just everyone's hinting, what is the Matrix? What is the Matrix? Oh, da 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 da. And she was very intrigued. And then like it goes into the scene with Neo running through the office. And then, the scene in the car where they suck the thing out of him. And then he's got the red pill, blue. Then you got the red pill, blue pill scene. Each scene takes you to the next scene. Like you're hanging on, and the next scene is awesome. Like it's just you're fully engaged, beginning to end. Even though it's a 2-hour film, it wears that time so well. Honestly,
Mhm.
better than a film that we've watched for this podcast in a while. We watch a lot of 2-hour plus films.
Mhm.
Um, that this film never drags. And then there's one part that I will bring up later. Um, never
I would
drags.
agreed.
Um, and it's just perfectly paced. Perfectly paced. The action to the interesting, to quiet moments. It has emotion. It's not just raw, punching and shooting, killing. There is a ton of killing of just regular people. Like there's a lot of shooting up of cops. A lot of cops get killed in the first one, especially. And they're just supposed to be regular guys. Like they're not agents or anything like that. And
But
they're
they
just
could be.
and Neo is killing them all like it's nothing. Um, but yeah, yeah, amazing stuff.
Yeah, the way that the first one goes with the pacing, to go up piggyback off what you were saying, was we talked a lot on a previous episode about how the long movies that every scene still had purpose, but it just was too much that we need to cut down. This is a movie where also every scene has significant purpose, but even the slow scene, like the calm scenes, I don't want to call them slow because they don't feel slow in
No,
this whole
nothing
ride of
feels
a
slow.
film. Is just so like it just what you need to know, shows it like says just whatever gaps that's showing it doesn't give, and it just moves on to the next thing, and it doesn't treat the viewer like an idiot. It's not, but also
It
not hand
doesn't
holding
it
too much.
doesn't dump you. Yeah, it doesn't dump information on you. It reveals slowly.
Mhm.
And it doesn't feel even like rushed. Like it's not like the quiet moments are
No,
short.
not at all.
It's not like anything short. It's just you're really getting to
Purposeful.
know these characters. I feel like we didn't have a lot of time with the crew, but like
Hmm.
in terms of speaking, but at the same time I really very much was invested in them when they died. Like I feel it.
Hmm.
Fucking creeps me out every time they get killed. Since I was a
Yeah,
kid, it bugged me watching them die. Like the not like this, not like this.
yeah. The background cast is more of a, I was watching it this view going now knowing like the transgender themes and stuff like that, so I was paying attention to like switch more and just like everybody's appearance in and out of the Matrix, and just trying to pick up on that stuff this time around. And the yeah the as soon as Mouse gets shot right in the beginning of that tower sequence, the raid sequence,
Yeah.
It is just, oh man. Even though I've seen it all before, it's just like watching
Yeah,
Cypher's
yeah.
fuck up like traitorness just slowly happen one by one over the course of the last hour of the movie is
And they
man, is
kill
it just
so many characters really quickly. Like all this, like
hmm
5 people die, and then we're just left with Trinity, Tank, Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus to
it
figure it out.
it does a great job of just really powering home like the agents aren't to be fucked with in the Matrix is something that you are is far more dangerous than Neo probably originally thinks because he just lived in it as a regular person.
Yeah.
But it really, yeah, just how killing those people in such a short amount of time is really just like, oh fuck, this is way more real. If you didn't think it was real to begin with,
The agents I think are done the best in this movie. Speaking of,
hmm
because they have power, like you're fearful of them, and then by
hmm
the end, yeah, Neo overcomes that, but they feel like they're very much remind me of the T whatever from the Liquid Terminator. From
hmm
Terminator 2. That's what another one I was going to say. There's a lot of, obviously, I know we keep bringing up 80s and 90s as a whole, but in specifics, Terminator is a huge
hmm
influence on this. The Terminator future is pretty similar to the Matrix future. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, I was gonna say the agents are very similar to the Liquid guy. In terms of like they're unstoppable, they can take anyone's form, or like they can jump into somebody's body,
mm
and that kind of shit. They have a very similar role, and that they're unstoppable, and we are running from them until the difference is till Neo is able to, believe his oneness and beat
mm
and whoop their ass, and that's like the main plot of the first film is overcoming the agents.
It's
Um,
almost kind of like a disappointment that that the agents could kind of put on the wayside in the sequels, in comparison to the main plot.
I don't like the actors that play them as much either. Like obviously,
No, there's no Hugo Weaving, like no
but it
standout of the
well,
agents
it
after that.
doesn't. They don't need to have a standout. That's not what I mean. I mean like they're like just seem like muscly dudes in the future films where they seem like they seem more believable as real FBI CIA kind of
Yeah,
agents.
yeah, definitely.
Like Hugo
Um,
Weaving's not a big ass dude. I think only one of them was kind of big in the first movie, but the other two were like
yeah.
pretty normal size. I don't. I think when they look like bodybuilders, it takes me out of it a little bit.
And that's what I kind of mean by like I don't mean like a standout as like a star or something. It's just someone that
They
like
don't need to have
Hugo Weaving,
lines.
his yeah, his demeanor, his stature, just how he walks, his presence is just intimidating, and he's not a big guy.
I like that they
Um,
looked a little bit different. Yeah, they look a little different. They all have brown hair. They're all white guys, with
yeah.
brown hair, but they have different statures, I guess, to
Mm.
set them apart more. They look a little too samey in the later ones.
Yeah, and I don't. Also, what doesn't help is that like he only really like get fearful of an agent when Neo's not on screen in the sequels because
That's
they
the
don't
other
really pose a
problem.
threat.
I think that's why they don't use them that much. I think that's why what the Wachowskis' reasoning for changing their role is
hmm
the stakes have now risen. It's like an anime, the villain from last season once they're beaten,
hmm
they're no big deal now. Now it's the next big bad. That's even stronger, which is
Yeah.
like they bring in all we'll talk about that in a second. I think we can start trying to wrap up this first Matrix here. It's just revolutionary in so many ways. Like we said, pace is great. We didn't talk about the Oracle scene. The Oracle scene is fantastic. Gloria
hmm
Foster plays the Oracle in the first 2 films. Well, I guess like the first 2 films. She is amazing and has so much charisma and really sells you on this vibe of the Oracle. I really love this movie, these movies, the whole series are really great about female characters, and it's a very diverse cast and world. You notice that all the
hmm
bad guys are white. There are never
hmm
any bad guys that are not white. Or at least the agents and the police are always white.
Yeah,
The
and the
in the
architect and
yeah, the second film you got the werewolf ghost people or whatever. But
they were so white they're albino.
well, yeah, I mean, there was like an Asian guy in that crew, I think. But
Yeah, yeah.
but Yeah, there's definitely so much commentary that I never saw when I was a kid. And like the capitalism stuff is obvious, right?
Mhm.
Um, the authority, the police state stuff with there's a lot of anti-authority with the opening scene, not opening, but in the earlier in the film where he's talking to his boss and the boss is like giving him some corny ass cliche work
Mhm.
speech, and then like there's a lot of like fuck cops themes throughout all these movies and stuff like that. Like there's anti-authority and then just like you got free in your mind and those kinds of things. But also me and Riss were also trying to spot out the stuff about the trans issues and the trans experience. And the one thing that we kept noticing is there was a lot of talk about defining your true self. Like
Mhm.
your self is not defined by who you are in the Matrix. Here in the real world is you can be your true self, and you can be
Mhm.
you can be the person that you want to be and that you're meant to be, whether it's fate or whatnot. And like there's a lot of fate talk, but there's also a lot of
Mhm.
like if you follow your heart and do it and make your own choices, that it'll lead you to your ultimate destiny. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like free
Yeah,
will fate stuff.
there's a line whenever Morpheus is first like putting Neo into the control simulation to show him what the world currently likes with like the red leather chairs and stuff.
Yeah.
And Morpheus drops a line of like, notice that your plug is gone, your hair is gone. This is what your brain, self-identifying image or whatever is
Yes, that was
portrays yourself as.
very much.
Yeah, and that's like such a subtle line for the time because obviously it being something that's not on the forefront of media and all that. But looking back to it, it's like clear as day. It'd be pretty hard to argue against it being about anything else.
Um,
Excuse me.
yeah, that is absolutely. We felt that for sure. Yeah, defining your true self, whatever that may be. And it's really interesting, and to see that, and just see even hearing them speak back then, and thinking about where they are now, and
Hmm.
like the Wachowskis, I mean, and it's interesting, and it makes a lot of sense, and they're really important artists, and they made something really important to a lot of people, and I think that there's a lot of people that I see in comments and stuff that are like don't understand the change, and it's obvious if you think about the more you think about it in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense, and
Hmm.
I'm just happy that this helped them realize themselves as well,
Hmm.
so all right, we talked about the themes, which are great, and they're a huge part of the movie, but they don't
Yeah.
like it's not so dense and like constant and beating you over the head. At least in the first film, that it's like indigestible, or it's like all right, I'm rolling my eyes at shit.
Hmm.
Um, it's done really really well, and yeah. I think it's interesting for the time there are no LGBT characters in any of the ones I've seen. I can't think, at least, of any. I think maybe
Hmm.
in the Zion dance scene, there's probably some shit going on, but it just looks like a mass of bodies.
Yeah.
Um, but
Sweat pool.
yeah, that was one thing I thought was worth noting, but I think it's just a product of the time of
Hmm.
1999, and I imagine that the new one, we might see some. I'm sure. I've really heard some
Yeah.
interesting things about the new one, but I'm not gonna spoil them.
I haven't heard anything. All I've seen was the first two trailers, and that's it.
I'm worried about
Which is a lot
you
for me.
and your expectations. We'll talk
I will
about it
say,
later.
yeah. At the end of this, this episode, we'll talk about it a little bit, touch upon it. But I was gonna say was, yeah, I wanted to ask you about the almighty, the greatest interrogation scene ever made, between Smith and Morpheus, towards
It's
the end of
the
the film.
smell.
That's so good. Like
Yeah, it
Hugo
is
Weaving
good. It is
might be
good.
his best monologue ever. It is so good. And the way that Morpheus is reacting, and he's got like they get him the shot, and his eyes roll in the back of his head, and he's just drenched in sweat, and he's shaking, and all like it's just everything is just so like intense and real, gritty feeling. That it, especially with all what going around it in the big mythos, like this is just this moment is so much bigger than this room, but it does such a good job of making you care only about what's going on in this room and like listening to Hugo. I can watch that scene infinitely. It is so good.
Yeah, I agree. There's just like so many that's what I kept saying to Riss. I'm like, iconic moment. Whoa, iconic scene. Whoa, iconic moment. I just kept using the word iconic because it was like these are moments that are like burned in my brain. You know, whether it's the opening scene with Trinity or the train, you know, the martial arts fight scene, the scene where everybody dies, or there's so many. The Oracle scene. There's this classic moments that I have like memorized practically. Like I could probably recite some of these lines. They're so important to me growing up. There's one thing I wanted to bring up before, and I think we should start to move on. So what do you think about the cultural impact in terms of school shooters, and like because that comes with edgy culture a lot, and Columbine kids were wearing trench coats, and we're having Uzis, trench coats, and sunglasses are very much the classic school shooter attire, and
Did this come out before Columbine or after?
I think it came out. I thought it came out after. But
yeah, that's what I thought too.
But it's part like of that aesthetic. Like it's no, it's the same year.
Same year. Oh, I was gonna say because I knew they were trench coats for Columbine, and I thought that was inspired by the Matrix. But
and like I was gonna that it will the whole Uzi trench coat thing has been a thing since the 80s. It's just like so Columbine was the month after the Matrix came out. So
interesting.
Yeah. And then like edgy 90s aesthetics definitely fed into school shooter vibes. And I think that after that and after 9/11 also you see in media and mass media a huge pullback from violence and certain things, especially stuff for kids and teens. And the 90s was fine to sell us, violent merchandise about everything. RoboCop had toys. RoboCop is a rated R movie. Aliens and Predator have toys. R-rated movies. Toxic Avenger, R-rated movies. They had a cartoon. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was an edgy comic before it became a cartoon. The 80s and 90s was all a fucking about taking popular edgy shit, repackaging it, and selling it to children. And I'm not saying that it's all bad because I love all of this. Everything I just said to you, I think is cool as fuck. And I like, as an adult, I like seek out that kind of aesthetic from the 90s. But there is, repercussions to that. And I'm not saying, and I'm never somebody that's like video games cause mass shootings. Grand Theft Auto causes violence or something like that. But it's something I wanted to at least consider it because of the way this movie looks and the movie's themes about authority. And honestly, we were talking about this with the X-Files, but this movie is also a part of that, but also conspiracy culture, which we definitely have as a problem in modern America.
You could take up a lot of the lines out of this movie and instead of replace the Matrix with just the government and
all the red pill.
A lot of the conspiracy. Yeah, like everything is everything's a deep state control. Everything is control.
Oh yeah, and it's all like there's this hidden secret about the world, that needs to be revealed. QAnon is some Matrix ass shit. Like not exactly, but it's this hidden knowledge, that only so many people know about, the elite few. And it's like what's that movie? They Live is this kind of a movie. But this movie being so They Live was not as popular as the motherfucking Matrix or the X-Files.
Or else everyone would be dressed like Roddy Piper. Uh,
Yeah, that's it. We'll have 20-minute fights with Keith David.
yeah.
Um, um, but
Oh man.
I think that it is something to bring up with its legacy. It doesn't tarnish it. It doesn't,
Mm.
I don't want to censor the Matrix or anything like that because this is
Yeah.
amazing. But I think when it was reinforced watching the Animatrix as well with like the kid story and um yeah, with those themes you have to at least bring up that stuff.
Yeah. I think that the movies transcended at least because of how much of a pullback with. I think that like they can stand on their own and not be in this day and age at least. Maybe not so much a decade ago, but I think it's been enough of a separation where the movies have held up longer than that aesthetic with got like attributed with that era of school violence.
But yeah, not just school violence, though, but like the alt right stuff that's still going on today, or conspiracy stuff, or what have you. Like it has had a negative impact socially in that kind of way, and not like it personally, but it
Mm.
is used in a lot of propaganda with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Getting woke probably comes from the Matrix. Like I'm sure it's more than just that, but
yeah,
waking up, the idea of waking up, like the shit Morpheus says,
wake
gets
up sheeple.
used, the whole sheeple thing. It
Yeah,
definitely
Morpheus says that.
in the Alice in Wonderland. He doesn't say
Yeah.
that, it's the Alice in Wonderland thing, and I don't know. It's something to consider.
I think if it wasn't this movie, it would have been another movie or art form or medium or something that you could go reach for, or a book or something that would still propagate those same things. It might not be as thrown as prominent as into mainstream as this movie might have made those themes, but I feel like it was just like an inevitable with the way that humans are and the way that American politics have gone and are going.
Well, and it's
Um,
people assign like there's a problem with media that is has a message that is anti-capitalist. Squid Game is a perfect modern example. I haven't seen it, but I know its themes. And Squid Game has an anti-capitalist theme, very much like Parasite or something. And people, conservatives, will like the show, not understand the anti-capitalist theme, and then try to assign their own meaning to justify why they like it. And I think that is exactly what happened to The Matrix. Because The Matrix definitely is not pro-conservative. It might be
yeah.
anti-authority, but anti-authority can be left as
Mhm.
well. So what you got here is, I think, a case of that, where people, they really like this transcends politics, obviously, like you said. It transcends social shit. But I think because of that, when something is so good it
Mm.
doesn't matter, then people will they try to retroactively justify their love by assigning some further meaning to it.
Mm.
Like V for Vendetta is another perfect example, which was produced by the
Yeah.
Wachowskis. V for Vendetta has been used by left people and right people, though it is, I would say, it's obviously that Alan Moore is an anarchist, so it's pretty left. I would say it's left as you get. um, yeah.
But
What do
yeah.
you anything you want to say about that?
I mean, you pretty much hit all the nails on the head. I think I got what I was trying to say out of it. I don't think I'll find better words. But ultimately, though, yeah, I think the Matrix can stand without it, and it'll last. I think longer without that connotation, like that around it, than with it around it. If that makes sense.
All right. So, what are you giving The Matrix?
I've got to give it a 5. It's fucking dope.
5, baby. I got 5 on it.
It's so good.
I feel like I
It's
need a
so
drop.
good.
I got 5 on a drop. Anytime. No. Anytime we do a 5, we play. I got 5 on it. And but all right.
Yeah, it's just while they're in some way you could argue it's not a absolute perfect film, but for me,
Oh, I wanted to bring up the one thing that we talked about. It was we were like, this is the only possible con we could think of, and we didn't. We were like trying to decide if it was enough to make it a 4.5. We decided not. But towards the end, you have before the final fight scenes with Smith, and Neo is running while they are in, like, it keeps cutting to Neo running through streets while they're in the ship trying to figure out, oh fuck, the Sentinels are coming. And I thought that went on a little too long. That, like, we're like, oh my god, he's running still. Like, we get it, just get to where you're going, and then let's end this motherfucker. And I thought that could have been a few minutes cut off of that.
Yeah, I always read that as like, oh, these are happening simultaneously, even though the cutting back and forth makes it seem like it's one after the other. I forgive that.
It just feels longer. It felt longer.
Yeah.
It was the only lull for me. The only, like, oh, this is getting a little, like, all right, come on.
I feel like because the final fight scene which is my favorite, is so badass that I don't mind that, like, it's that lull, if that makes sense. And like, I got enough suspense out of the Sentinels and stuff, and just and the running and all that keeps of enough of a like a high frenetic feel that it takes me through it personally. But I can see that.
All right, got it. Let's move on to the Animatrix. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but I want to. There's some really interesting stuff that I've found out while looking into this. So we were talking about it before, but the Animatrix, the Matrix Reloaded, and the Matrix Revolutions were all released in the same year. Final Fight of Osiris actually was released a little even before that as a short film that played before Dreamcatcher, if you know that film, know that movie. And but then they released this on DVD, and looks like it was released in June, and then they released the Matrix Reloaded shortly after that, I believe. Like, not very long after that at all.
No one said November for Revolutions.
Or yeah, Reloaded was May, and then Revolutions is November, you said?
I think. Let me double confirm.
So what you have is, and it's an anthology, I would say, of 8 shorts. Is that what it is?
9.
9 shorts, and they are done by different animation directors. Some from the West, some from most are actually from Japan. But it's like some of the best in the business. Usually, and this is something I did not know as a kid. Like, in some things, I was like, oh, this looks like, this. Some other thing I like, but I didn't have any idea. And so just going through them, the Final Flight of the Osiris. Oh, well, let's just talk about them one at a time. I think that's the best way, and then we'll give a score for the whole thing. Yeah. The order, for some reason, the order on this Wikipedia is not the same as the order I watched. So that's the other thing to think about, is when it was released on DVD, it was not a front to back movie. You watched it, like, you could hit play all, but you really, like, you were selecting them in the DVD menu one by one. I think it's generally what people did. So it's got a different feel. Like, now watching it on HBO Max, like, having to fast forward through the whole thing, it's one piece. You know what I mean? When it was like chopped up before in the DVD. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I watched it on Vudu, and it just gave me the just the title in before each short, and then played it. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
which I like it that way. I know the pause beats to go pee or get a drink or something.
Yeah, me and Riss actually watched it in 2 parts. We watched like 4 of them, and then we watched the last half. And I think it was really it was nice to actually break it up that way, so it wasn't super daunting. But yeah, which one do you want to? Let's talk about them in order the best we can. The one that started for me, which I'm sure was probably the same for you, is the Second Renaissance. Which,
part 1 and 2 played for me first.
Yeah, I would say Second Renaissance is the best one of all of them.
hands down.
It is the most, I would say. I guess it's abstract. It's more abstract than I realized. When I was a kid, I thought this was like literally what happened. And it is a history of what happened and led up to the events that set up the world of the Matrix. And I didn't realize it was so short either. It's only 10 minutes. Each half is 5 minutes. I remember this thing having such an impact on me as a kid. Probably one of the darkest
Mhm.
things I had seen up to that point. With
Yeah, it was fucked rewatching this
It
one.
is incredibly bleak. It's at first it's incredibly bleak towards the robots, and then it's incredibly bleak towards the humans, and just a lot of gore and violence. And there was actually a sequence that it wasn't sexual violence, but it was very reminiscent of. It was evoking sexual
Mhm.
violence, and they just kind of beat. It was like she was like an android. She had like human skin, and like they like her top was ripped off, and then we found out she was an android, and they beat her to death. And
Yeah, that first club to the face where before like it's this club that takes the skin off the face is so impactful and hard that I didn't even care that it was the robot under
well,
the skin
well, yeah,
because
I
it was
mean
so
that's the whole point. It's you're supposed
fucked.
to care about these robots as if because
Yeah.
they're people, and like we could very well have a future where we invent AI, and if we can't treat you know sentient beings as slaves.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and enslaving our fellow human beings?
Yeah.
Um, and like this is not a new thing. This is broached in so many sci-fi works. Data in Star Trek is a perfect example. But yeah, so it's like you're immediately, because like the robots obviously aren't going to be all these little humanoids. Like robots are going to be all kinds of different things. They're like stylized to look like humans, and they're kind of cute, especially in the beginning before the robot civilization develops. They
Mhm.
kind of look, not very intimidating at all, and they just, even when they have guns, they're just like holding little guns in their hands and stuff, and it's really cute. And then it just slowly they get, the war machines develop, and then they're fucking up everything, and the humans are getting genocide to extinction.
Yeah, after Operation Dark Storm on part 2, where it's like that final battle scene that's like which takes up the entire second half of the part 2. It is so the animation is insane looking for one, but it is
Like the
so bleak
battle,
when yeah, whatever
the
the humans
most of
think
the
they're
second
winning.
part, most of the second part is just one battle essentially.
Yeah. Um the but after the humans like started to think that they're winning and they're like celebrating and stuff, and then through like the smoke and shit because it's so dark they can't see, all these like squid crawlers start showing up and just murking everybody, and like the guy getting pulled out of the mech suit and his arms and legs gets ripped off, and so much of that sequence has such grotesque like human violence, and it is so fucked up, but something about it is so good at the same time.
It's very
um
reminiscent of 80s anime.
yeah,
I would say late anime 80s anime is like violence at its peak. Akira is what it reminds me of, that battle at the
yeah.
end. Or Jinro, Wolf Brigade, or there's a lot of movies like that in the 90s and 80s that was very reminiscent of. And it's
Mhm.
just done so well. And it's just like this budget is incredible. And then that's what you're seeing. I would not be surprised if this is like the highest budget some of these directors had worked on for a short. Not because,
Mhm.
Japan doesn't have good budgets, but because it's for the motherfucking Matrix, a blockbuster.
Yeah.
The studios are throwing money at it because they know people are going to buy these DVDs. So like you're really seeing people, fantastic animation directors, with great budgets working on this property. And apparently the Wachowskis helped write stories for almost all of them. I think
Oh,
uh,
they did 4 of them.
they did 4 of them. Yeah, that's right. Well, I think they were at least involved though with everything, but
Yeah.
they wrote a few of them specifically themselves.
Yeah, they are the overall producers of the projects. They would have had a hand in everything.
Um, So just some. So the second Renaissance, probably like I said, probably my favorite. And just incredibly bleak. It's like a documentary history documentary of what happened, and human beings suck ass. And so after that, what was after that for you? I think I'd Program next.
Yeah, I'd Program next.
Program. Which one's that one?
That's the one with the kabuki samurai guy.
Okay,
and
okay. This one is the worst one in my opinion. I don't know how you felt about that, but this
I
one,
was indifferent.
this one is just action. There's like no substance to it. There's no interesting story to it, and it's like it being samurai, and it just like takes me out of it being Matrix. Like it doesn't matter. Also, the dialogue was not that great. Like the plot of it, with it's just Cypher's shit, but then we find out it was just a test in the end. The art style is beautiful though.
Yeah, art style is incredible. I did kind of believe Phil Lamar by the end of it.
Phil Lamar.
Until it went out, and then I was just angry that it ended up being just a test, because like I wanted real weight, and it just like took all the stakes away and all the weight away. So it was like kind of a letdown. But the animation is at least cool enough to give it like a watch and enjoy it from that perspective.
So the director of this is Yoshiaki Kawajiri, and he's done a ton of stuff I've seen. Wicked City. He's a director of Demon City Shinjuku. He's a director of Ninja Scrolls, which is many people, at least when I was younger, a lot of people considered it one of the best anime movies ever. Yeah, ton of stuff. X, ton of great stuff. And so the animation is fantastic. The action's fantastic. He has a lot of stuff set in feudal Japan, so it was really interesting. Well, I guess not interesting, but predictable that he would take his Matrix and put it into feudal Japan. But yeah, like I said, this was my least favorite. How did you think? What do you think about that?
I think it's tied for my least favorite. I think. I don't know if I like the other one, Matriculated. I don't know if that one is worse to me or not. Cooler themes in Matriculated.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. Next was World Record for me. And World Record's also, I think, in the bottom couple for me. I remember when I saw this as a kid that I had no idea what the fuck was going on, and it was just like weird. I just remember being, this is weird. The agents look different, and it was very stylized, and
it freaked me out.
And this one was like, okay, I get it now, and it's cool, but it was one of the slower ones. It's one of the shorter ones. That's about it. It's about a guy who's a sprinter, and he's having some muscle problems. And he's getting older, and he's trying to break his record. And he tries so hard. His willpower and determination to win is so hard as his muscles are breaking down. He breaks out of the Matrix and then runs so fast that he breaks the record and then is paralyzed.
Why do you think the agents were so concerned with him waking up? They made a point to say the line like do not let him wake up. And then when he does, like in the Matrix,
I think
movie,
they just don't
wakes up,
they just don't want him. They don't want people to wake up. They didn't want Neo to wake up either.
But like when the machine just unplugged him and drained him, versus this
one.
Well,
the machine's dumping him. He's dumping him in the trash. They're dumping Neo in the trash to die in the first one.
Yeah, well, I'm saying with this one, when he wakes up, instead of unplugging him and dumping him to die,
it just forces him back in.
him back on and shock the shit out of him.
And it just I don't know. It just forced him back in. I guess it depends.
But other than that, that was my only left me kind of weird questioning. But I love the animation on this. I was super freaked out from this when I was a kid, just because the animation is kind of scary.
The animation is cool, but there is a part where his friend or trainer is talking to him before the thing, and he's moving his hands, like he's just talking with his hands like this and just flopping them around. We kept making fun of it. Me and Risk just kept moving our hands like this, talking to each other.
I liked it. I don't know. It was, I don't know. It's just
I
over
was like gonna
exaggerated.
say it's style. It was going for it's a style thing, but
Hmm.
I didn't think it was good. Um, but yeah, it was still fine. Still fine. All right, next I think we can move on. Next, well, for me was I don't know, I think Kid Story, right?
Yeah, I think it was that or Beyond, but I think it's a good
No, it's
story.
Kid Story. Kid Story. Kid Story's good. Kid Story's good. It's pretty like basic Matrix story of someone getting out, but he's in high school. Um, I really like the art style in this one. It's not. It almost looks rotoscoped, but I don't think it is. I think it's just like this hyper detailed. Like it's shaggy, but that's enables
Yeah.
them to have the more like lifelike movements.
So much of the background I kept there's some scenes where the background looks like real life, like when he's having breakfast in the morning, and there's one shot in
Yeah, that
the
one looked
classroom. It
like a
looks like
straight up
real
look.
life.
One of them looked like a digitized photo or something.
Yeah, and but then you have the rest of it that is just full animation, just hyper detailed. It kind of goes wild. But I just love that everything, that the way that the characters are drawn, all movements are just heavy motion blurred and like melting and whizzing and all
It
that.
feels like
Like
a dream. It feels like a
yeah,
dream. Like it's like because he said like it feels like I'm dreaming when I'm awake
yeah.
or whatever. Um, so Kid Story was done by Shinichiro Watanabe, and he also did Detective Story later. And he is. Do you want to know who he is? Do you have any guesses?
Um,
Because everyone I've said so far has done some hits. So it's not like
I
it's
mean
not.
something that I would know.
Yes, absolutely.
Uh, like something popular or something
Absolutely.
more
Some of the most popular
uh,
shit ever.
movie or TV or anime like show.
Oh, he's done it all, baby.
Ah, fuck. I don't know. Death Note or
Lame.
I
You
don't
got to
know then.
think Death Note is early 2000s. Think about the time here.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, this is.
So you were thinking 90s and 80s.
I mean, the 90s and 80s is for me is all just like Yu Yu Hakusho and Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, you
Um.
don't. All right. Well, I'll spare you. Cowboy Bebop, Samurai
Oh.
Samurai Champloo,
Oh
Space
wow.
Space Dandy, Carol and
I don't know.
Tuesday.
I don't know that one.
Um, oh, they're on that. Space Dandy was on Adult Swim, and Carol and Tuesday is on Netflix.
Hmm.
Carol and Tuesday is fantastic. He also directed the Cowboy Bebop movie, and yeah. So yeah, you
Yeah.
really can see it in Detective Story. Detective Story is like
Yeah.
straight up Cowboy Bebop shit.
Mm.
It's noir, but but so it's Cowboy Bebop's very influenced by noir detective stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was cool. That was cool. All right. So then what we got? Beyond was after that, and Beyond is
Mm.
was kind of like a like Ghibli kind of vibe, Studio Ghibli kind of vibe. It was like slice of
Mm.
life. It was cute. There was no like real threats of death to anybody. You were scared because you knew that the agents were coming, but they didn't kill anyone. They just let them go home and whatever. But this one was really cute. So the premise was like it's a haunted house, but it's actually it's a glitch in the matrix, like it localized to this place, and these kids have like found out that there's tricks with like gravity and whatnot. What did you think about Beyond?
It was fun. I remember for some reason as a kid, I remembered it having a bad ending, like a not bad as in like story writing, but like one of the kids dying or something. But so I was kind of just like a little let down that nothing really like crazy happens during this. It's just very much just slice of life. Some kids find some things and the agents clean it up, and then that's it. But it's like it's just a nice break from a lot of like the drabness and extreme art styles and some of the other ones that kind of like in the whole piece calms it down and smooths things out a little bit.
So the director of this is Koji Morimoto. It looks like he's mainly worked as an animator. He worked as an animator in Akira. He also did key animation in Kiki's Delivery Service and Fist of the North Star. Kiki's is a great Miyazaki film, and so yeah, that I could see that with That's why I was like, there's got to be someone involved with Ghibli and involved that did this one. It's really cute, and I liked it a lot. I don't think I could have handled it if it was longer, but I think as it was a really good short. I lost my place here.
Next is Detective Story.
Detective Story is one of the best. Um, the backgrounds, the textures of the backgrounds are fan-fucking-tastic. They look like photographs. And then they just have like the animation over top. That's kind of like what it looks like.
It reminds me of The Spirit, like how it's like that threshold black and white
Yeah, it's
look
Sin
to it.
City looking. I wanted to say that to Riss, like, because I've been trying to not get her to watch it, but I keep talking about it. One day we're gonna watch Sin City, and it kind of reminds me of that. And like obviously they're both influenced with the noir films and stories. And this is a pretty typical detective story, but it's somebody trying to track down Trinity. They're being paid by the agents, and then he finds out that Trinity is cool, and then fights the agents, and he gets killed in the end. Pretty short, but so fucking cool. The style and the story and everything, and I think the Matrix actually lends itself really well to the noir genre.
Yeah, especially with how like shadowy and noir moments that it has, like when you're inside the Matrix. I think it's conveyed very well in that kind of like black and white art style.
All right, so next is Matriculated, correct?
Yep, I think it's the last one.
No, Final Flight of the Osiris is the last one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Matriculated is done by Peter Chung, and if you probably don't know that name, but Peter Chung is a Korean American animator who did the classic Aeon Flux on MTV when we were young. Are you familiar with Aeon Flux?
I know the movie.
No,
The
fuck
real
that
life
movie.
movie.
Fuck the movie. Forget that. Forget that. Google the animation. You'll definitely recognize the style. And he also did a show called Reign the Conqueror, which people like. He's usually noted as somebody who's like Western, but has very. He's kind of makes Western anime, is what people describe his style as. Aeon Flux is very sexual, and like very fluid, and the motions of people are very like squiddy. And this is like that. So when I was a kid, Matriculated was my least favorite. Now I like it a lot better this time, but it's still weird as fuck. And I like it's really interesting. All these people, the humans, are really unlikable, and then they all die in the end. I'm like, oh, okay, well that's probably why. And they're trying to convert robots. I guess they're like some kind of radical group that lives on the surface and is trying to capture and convert robots to the human side. And they have some success at first, and then eventually they get attacked by robots, and they all get killed. The scientist was like so smug at the very end. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let out my robots, and then he dies.
I know, and it immediately dies too. So it was just like, why were you laughing? It felt so weird.
Yeah, that's like you deserve to die, weirdo.
I'm looking at this Eon Flux and like stills from the MTV show, and it looks so much like Heavy Metal 2000.
Yes, it is like
Hmm.
that, but different.
Which
There's
I
a lot
also
of
at times on the short felt that.
there's a lot of tongue kissing in Aeon Flux. I did the logo with the fly and the eyelashes. That is like um the iconic still from it. Or image
Like a
from it.
Venus flytrap.
Yeah, it's really cool. But so yeah,
Um,
Aeon Flux is super cool. This is weird. I don't think it fully works, but it's an interesting idea. It's not it was my like I said my least favorite as a kid. I don't think it's my least favorite anymore, but it's definitely weird.
it was my least favorite as a kid. I think it's still down in my least favorite. I understand it now as an adult. I get what's happening.
It's very
Um,
sexual. It's very horny.
yeah, and it just takes a while. I feel like it's just the slowest feeling one, even
It's the
though it's not
longest. I think
a
it's the
long.
longest one.
Oh, really? Oh, that
Yeah.
would make sense why it feels so. Yeah, it's like all the stuff with the robot,
Uh,
like the humanoid robot and the consciousness thing. I feel like goes on a little too long.
It's like 15
Um,
minutes.
and then it just ends so abruptly when the robots show up and everyone dies. It's like it just feels so quick.
Yeah, I can
Um,
see that. I can see that. I think I
like
liked
it.
it because I think it being weird enhances it a little bit for me, but yeah.
Mm.
All right, the final one is the final flight of the Osiris. I brought that up earlier. It basically exists to be the setup for the next movie. I don't. I think that you can watch the second movie without knowing about this because they briefly explain it in the movie. But
Mhm.
it's like, oh, like when they do it in Matrix Reloaded, you're like, oh yeah, I know about that. I just saw that. And they discover basically the plot of the second film, that the machines are drilling down into Zion. So do you know who did this?
This is the team that did the Final Fantasy movie.
So
I
I,
think we talked about it
we
yesterday.
did talk about it. I'm mostly right about that. It's not the team who did it. So it's not the team who did the Final Fantasy movie fully, but it is Square US is who worked on it. So
Makes
it was
sense why
video.
like the render engine is similar.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a Final Fantasy Spirits Within, or the cutscenes in Final Fantasy 8, 9, and 10 or something. Um, yeah, this one is good. It's good. I honestly, I remember this one being bland when I was a kid, like it's just basic and basic Matrix story, but it actually was pretty decent.
Mhm.
Um,
As a kid, I feel like it didn't get good until you got out of that opening little dojo fight scene thing, and you
yeah,
start seeing like the drilling and stuff, and then it's
yeah,
like, oh shit.
the cutting the clothes off part was corny a little bit, but it was like kind of a gimmick. Especially with just seeing CG booty cheeks. Um,
But it was cool though. It still it holds up like the stuff where she's like when she gets in the Matrix to do the key drop thing, and she's just like like diving through the power grid and going through like it all
yeah,
still
that's
holds
all
up
cool.
well.
Yeah, it all looks good. The animation style looks better than Warhammer Plus. I tell you that.
Mhm.
Um,
I
there's
will
this.
say
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I will say after watching the drilling in that and then seeing the drilling shot in in Reloaded, it's way cooler looking in the movie than it is in this. But it still looks good though. It still like gives that portrayal of a fucking 250,000 Sentinel army drilling to the Earth core.
Um. All right. So yeah, well, that wraps it up for the or the Animatrix. It holds up really well. I think it is the second best Matrix movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd put it up there, bro. I gotta see rewatch Revolutions, but as of now, yeah, it's definitely the second.
Yeah, I think a lot of people seem to not like Revolutions. I guess we should save that, but it seems like that's the at large to the public. Revolutions is considered the worst of all of them.
That's so wild. I just because I always remembered it being Reloaded being the worst and people not minding Revolutions.
Well,
But
yeah, that is not the case, at least in the modern world. So
interesting.
let's talk about Matrix Reloaded. Honestly, we spent a lot of time on the last two, so we should probably move things along here. But yeah, The Matrix Reloaded came out in the same year, and yeah, this movie is like it's like I said, it's interesting because like the reasons I said before, because I'm invested in the world. But boys, this movie fail in a lot of the ways that you would expect the first one to fail. There's too much exposition, way too much exposition.
Mhm.
And it's not even interesting. Like I said, it is literally you meet a person and they just talk to you really quickly for 10 minutes, and the action sequences are not nearly as engaging. The big action set piece in the latter half of the film is way too long, and is an example of modern action set pieces that suck ass.
Wait, you
Um,
talking about Morpheus with the samurai sword and the semi?
yeah, all that shit
Oh,
is
that's so.
so bad, dude. It's so.
I didn't think I thought I thought the you could see like like the green screen
Yeah,
background a little bit
yes,
more,
yes.
but
It's too long.
the choreography still was I liked a
No, the
lot between
choreography's good. It's just way too long. Like
yeah.
that's the problem.
I overall I like this way more than remembered liking it. I remember hating this as a kid because I was like,
The,
oh, this is nothing like the first movie. Um,
the first
but
45 minutes are pretty good, I would say.
yeah, other than
It's
Superman Neo, still is like jarring to get used
it's
to.
goofy.
Uh,
It's goofy, and his outfit's a little goofy.
I feel like all of the outfits in this one aged terrible, but rewatching the last one, I didn't mind any
I
of the
said I
outfits.
said the same thing to Riss. I said Trinity's outfit's worse, Neo's outfit's worse. I like
It's more leather.
yeah, it's shine. Well, like Trinity's being all shiny. She looks like Catwoman. She
Yeah.
looks
M
like the
Morpheus's
Batman.
gator scoot.
Yeah, Morpheus' gator jacket. I don't hate that, and the purple vest, but um, it's a little bit louder. Like it's not as muted as the outfit, his
Mhm.
outfit in the last one. Everyone's outfit is a little more loud. Like not in terms of
Mm.
color, but it's a little more ridiculous in like you're gonna notice this person in this ridiculous outfit when they come in the room. Whereas last movie they were wearing leather, but they were more. I could see this person at a club wearing this shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It
Yeah, they
seemed
blended in with the world more.
yes, they look ridiculous a little bit more in this one, and it's not a big deal. That's not a deal breaker for me, but that. And then I was gonna say Morpheus delivers his lines so much harder in this movie. He's enunciating even more. I didn't think it was
Mhm.
possible, but I can't. I don't. If I wish I had a line just like queued up that I could just recite for you because like when he's given the speeches to the teams or whatever, it's just like man, he's really enunciating. It's not terrible, but the performance is not as good.
He
Eh,
feels more like religious zealot this one in his delivery than the last one.
When
Why?
he's
Because
well, that's
I guess
part
because you
that's a plot in the film is his
yeah,
religious zealotry.
like
We
he
are
just seems so much crazier than last one. He seemed like, all right, this is a guy who like believing in shit, but there is an oracle and everyone's like going
well,
along for it.
we didn't know that everybody the first movie makes you believe that this is what everybody believes. The
Yeah,
second
yeah,
film is what reveals that Morpheus is actually in a not a minority, but he's
not a majority.
not everyone believes this shit, and it frames it differently. But I think it's his. He seems a little more fanatic
Hmm.
in this, and maybe that's part of it. That's why he's playing it a little harder in this one. And
Hmm.
that's the problem. The movie doesn't fail in the broad strokes. I think it fails in just how it's all executed. Things are too long. Things are like too much. It's not. It doesn't have the nuance and subtlety that the first one has. That like, yeah, we're doing all this over the top shit, but we're doing it with a steady, subtle hand. That it's not, taking it too far. Like so
Hmm.
much other shit in the 80s and 90s that are, action sci-fi porn. Um, the
Do you?
Merovingian sucks. The Keymaster sucks. It's MacGuffin City. The MacGuffins on MacGuffins. It is very much the plot of Rise of the Skywalker, where it's like, go here, get this. Go here, get this. I can't tell you any reasons why you're doing any of this.
Hmm.
You must like we just have to go and think that it's what you're supposed to do. And like Morpheus talks about fate and destiny and like the prophecy, but it's just not enough to carry this thin ass plot.
Yeah, I was gonna say the best and worst parts of this movie are the whole you've already made the choices, now you need to understand why. I think it's such a great like idea to get you thinking and it's a great concept to
Yeah, yeah,
work
that's
off
not my
of,
issue.
but then uh it just becomes everything and it almost feels like a convoluted big heady monologue by the time you get to the architect where it's like I'm getting information that as a lore junkie I'm loving and this is so cool but it's delivered in such a pompous not pompous let me take it back delivered in such a way that just feels like it's like up its own ass if that makes sense
Yeah,
where
absolutely up its
like
own ass.
it feels like they had the first movie and it was a hit, and they didn't plan on making sequels, but then the studio wanted sequels, and then you get this movie, which is just, all right, well, I guess we have to build the world out now if we want to do the things we want to do, and that's this whole movie just feels like lore building
I
and
think
not
they had
like
some things, but I don't think they had like an actual they didn't have scripts written or anything. I think they had like
yeah,
broad lore information or whatever. But they made the first movie not knowing that there'd be sequels. That's why
yeah,
it is able to be watched as a one film because of that. Like it
yeah. This
implies
is a
that
two-parter.
yeah, the first film could just be on its own, and that's why
Mhm,
it works well. Also, it does not need like you find out the end that Neo's God now, and then you see the thing about the Matrix getting shut down, and that's the end of the movie.
mhm,
Where like the expansion I don't think to this level was fully planned. They may expected it as possible if it was a hit, but like it was a
Mm.
huge hit. Um,
Especially diving deep into the next thing being a two-parter, but shot as if it's one giant movie, and then that is such a hard thing to keep because you're looking at 4.5 hours of movie.
I don't think
Granted,
they're I don't think they're it's not supposed to be one movie. It is split into two like
well, no,
stories.
I'm saying like when you're shooting it as one movie because
Yeah,
they shot it.
yeah.
When you shoot back to back, it's really just you're shooting it like it's one big movie, and when you get that, I imagine there's just so many because there's so much to cover and there's so much to do, and you're shooting for almost 2 years, year and a half at least. I imagine the pacing gets lost and just how you're doing things, and like, do we have the time and the budget to go back and recorrect certain things, or does this work? Does this not? Because it's like, it's a massive feat to undertake. It's a massive world that you've created that you've now sunk yourself into a two-parter like epic, and I feel like that's where it gets lost. Whereas if it was maybe set up to just be one at a time, and if we'll see where we go from there. But I imagine once they got the money and the success of the first one, it was just like, oh, where can we go with this? And then it was just Idea City. But I wonder if they had the restraints of just getting stuck to one movie next, where it would have gone and how much it would have adapted what we saw.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they could have done it. Like it's not like it was they put themselves in a corner or something like that.
Mhm.
I think that is just they weren't, and they're fine. Like the Matrix Reloaded isn't terrible. It's just so far away from the original.
Mhm.
Like I don't like I'm probably gonna hate on it more than my score will end up being. But because it just like it does so many frustrating things that modern movies that like Marvel movies I think do the weaker ones. Um, with like I said the MacGuffins. It has a lot of issues of sequels in modern franchises today.
Mhm.
And I think which is that is normal, but there's also a lot of, I think you brought up something where it seemed like they just threw a lot of ideas at the wall and some of them stuck that maybe shouldn't have, like the werewolves and ghosts and the like I said the Merovingian.
Yeah.
um and I honestly think the programs being more people and the Oracle being a program is genius. And it
Yeah.
seems like a
Yeah. I say
perfect
I didn't hate any of
way,
that stuff.
like the prophecy is just like a part of the Matrix. I think all that is really genius. But man, having to listen to that old guy talk at the end for 10 minutes was just like, it wasn't terrible. I was interested, but it's like I kept thinking to myself, there's a better way to do this. There is a
Yes.
better
Yeah.
way to do this.
Even
Um
that same scene just delivered differently because it's just there's so many big words inflating in there that it just kind of bloat what he's saying. What he's saying could take 5 minutes, but they're padding it with
I
just
don't even
all of these.
I don't even think it's like what I mean. I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but even like the Merovingian speech is the same problem. I start getting lost in it because you just say talking about
Yes.
You say causality a million times, and
Exactly.
I'm distracted by this woman orgasming. I have no idea what is going on. Because like me and Riss are like, is that woman orgasming? And then we just focused on that, and we totally stopped listening to what he was saying.
Yeah. But
And
yeah, it's kind of like that. It's just you're just repeating the same things. This definitely hits you over the head a lot more with the control and what are you in control of your own fate and all that stuff a lot more than the last movie did. While the last movie brings it up quite a bit, it's needed just to because that's the whole theme of breaking out of the Matrix. This one you're out, and now where do you go?
there's
What
too many
themes do you tackle?
characters. I think there's too many characters. I'm realizing that now. Yeah, the Merovingian, and then Monica Bellucci, and then the Keymaster, and then the Architect at the end. Like, I think it's just one too many. Monica Bellucci's thing is like cool, but it's so small, and she doesn't come back, and it's just like what. Like, and then the fight with the Merovingian goons, it seems so pointless when it's like, we've done this before, and
Yeah.
it's all good. And like when you find out everything's prophecy, it takes stakes away a little bit. And like that was supposed to be the thing with, oh, Trinity has to die. It's part of all this, but
Mm.
Neo fixes, breaks the prophecy or whatever, changes
Yeah.
destiny.
I feel like that whole Merovingian fight is supposed to, because he has those like one-off lines just talking about how like your predecessors had more or whatever, but we haven't been spelled out to us yet that this isn't the first Matrix and Neo's not the first one. But I think that's supposed to give the hint. I just don't
Yes, we're
think it
starting to learn
gets.
it.
I don't think it hits home to be like I picked it up this time because this is my multiple times seeing the movie, but the at the
The
time you're
first
just
time.
so absorbed by the mediocre action sequence, which is like
I don't
this
the
one has
choreography wise, it's good. It's just I
choreography's
don't
fine, but
I don't care.
I don't like the set piece that they're fighting in. Everything seems like looks like a stage. Nothing
It
looks
does feel
real
like a
lived in. Like
stage. It does feel
the
like a
first
stage.
movie, even though so much of the first movie is on a soundstage, the first movie all feels real and shot in reality. This movie, because the budget's so inflated, like the camera work is way cleaner. It's less textured. Like that whole courtyard with the Smiths scene is all on a set, and it just looks straight
That
up like a set to me.
I really hate
It
that
takes you out
fight.
of it. Yeah, the
That
CGI and that takes it out too.
Yeah, the
Like,
CGI is really bad in this one. Like the way they use it more, and then it thus looks worse.
yeah.
Where it's probably the same level, if not better, than the last movie. What was I gonna say? Uh, I don't remember. Basically, this movie, it just fails at a lot of the things that the first one does correctly. With the Merovingian fight scene, yeah, like I don't care how good a fight scene is. If I don't care, then I don't care how good it is. I don't care how good it is. The first movie, the training scene, I cared. The agents
Mm,
fights, I cared. The Trinity opening, I cared. Like
mm,
I don't care about the Merovingian fight. I care about the freeway fight until it's gone on so long that I don't care anymore and I just want it to end. Um yeah, the green screen looked really obvious. Riss pointed that out as well on the freeway. Um the
which
freeway's
is
just too
wild to
long.
me. It's wild to me about the green screen because watching the behind the scenes for this movie, they built like a 2 mile long freeway just to film this movie on, like from scratch, built it. And there's even behind the scenes of the stunt people on the moving semi truck and stuff. So it's just wild that so much they did all that work and so much of that, but the stuff with the actors looks so bad green screened into it. Um, because man, that would have cost a lot of money to build your own highway. Um,
Yes,
It's
yes.
disappointing. But
Yeah.
it goes back to my thing I was saying. Where it's like they've got endless money for this one. They've got all chains unleashed, and it's like I feel like more restraints could have put them in something that would have been that could have worked better, maybe.
Something about
But
that green screen thing I think we need to consider as we are watching it in 4K HDR versus
yeah,
standard definition when it came out. You're not going to
mm,
notice that kind of shit in standard definition, I don't think.
that's
Um,
true.
in the movie theater maybe, but definitely not at home. And yeah, so that is something. But even the Mr. Smith shit looked bad then. I noticed the Mr. Smith clone fight looked bad
Mm.
like 5 years after that movie. Not even like 4 years after that movie came out.
I remember it
Um,
thought it looked weird when the one thing that looked the weirdest to me was when Neo did his like spinning around, hitting
yes,
everybody with the
yeah.
pipe,
Neo
and
looks
he
weird.
looks like rubber.
Yes, he looks like rubber. He looks like rubber. I thought the same thing. Um,
Um,
yeah. I mean,
but I don't hate this movie though, and I definitely like it a lot more than I did as a kid. Um, I think that it is. As of now, I still stands that this is the weakest of the trilogy, but I might change that after this next week. But it is. I like what it's doing for the lore building is awesome. It's just how it's done in this movie kind of sucks sometimes.
I
Um,
don't think it's a bad movie. It like I said, it's just it's much more inferior. It is much inferior to the original. If the
mhm.
original's a 5, then yeah, we're about to give our scores on what this one is. What do you? I don't. I think we forgot to give our scores on Animatrix. So for real quick, what did you give the Animatrix?
I was gonna give it a 4 just because everything wasn't a hit, but overall it was great.
I gave it a 3.5. Um, just because some of them, like they were good. Some of them were good, but might have like not the best writing. I didn't like the Phil Lamar one, like I said, but some of them would have. It's like good art styles carry some of them and whatever, but like as the narratives and dialogue or whatever. But yeah, 3.5. I'm giving this a 3. Matrix Reloaded.
I was gonna give this a 3.5.
Oh my god.
I still liked it, and I think it's mostly the world building elements, like the lore stuff that is making me like it so much. But and as a film, it is not like cinematography wise, it's still very well done. It's just not very well paced, and I think that's its biggest flaw is
It,
is
it's entertaining, and like I said, the first half is still really good.
yeah.
The opening's cool. Interested in the world. Zion's cool. I want to ask you, what did you think about Kid?
Uh,
Having the kid story, like there was only a few Easter eggs you got for watching the Animatrix. The Final Flight of the Osiris was one. The other one was Kid.
yeah, I mean he's kind of like not annoying, but like he's I feel like he's older than he is portrayed in the
Yeah,
animation,
he's
but
supposed to. The
he
actor is definitely in like his mid-20s, and he's supposed to be like
mm,
17.
yeah, and that kind of takes you out of it, and it just looks as like annoying guy rather than a kid you saved.
He
If that
reminds
makes
me of
sense.
the adoring fan from Oblivion. I don't think you're gonna know that reference, but
I don't.
when you get so far in Oblivion, this guy just like he's an elf and he follows you around. He's just like your biggest fan. He'll just show up outside a dungeon and be like, "Here you are." It's really funny. Um, yeah. All right. Well, I am
Oh,
excited. Go
the
ahead.
last thing about this though, we didn't talk about it. The Smith taking over a guy and putting his consciousness
So
inside of a human brain.
this movie ends really well, as I wanted to say. The ending the reveal that Neo has powers in the real world, and the reveal
Mm,
that Mr. Smith is in the real world, and they're in the same ship, is super super cool. What did you think about the bit? There was like a counterattack that happened off screen. Because
yeah.
I think I barely understood that when I was a kid, and this time I get like there was a scene that there was this battle that we didn't see because we weren't there, and the humans got fucked up.
It made more sense on how they ended up on that ship and why that ship was out there in the first place because everybody else was supposed to be tucked back into Zion.
What did you think about the guy with the leg brace? And the like bridge broke and he died and killed the
Oh
operator.
yeah,
It's like what? Why did
that
this
was a bit
happen?
ridiculous.
Why?
Um,
Just for the plot's sake? I mean, I guess the
yeah, because
machines
they were
blew
gonna
them
die
up.
anyways.
The
Yeah, they were gonna
machine.
die anyways because of the machine, so he didn't need to be killed from
It just
that.
yeah. I didn't make any sense. I did not understand why they did that.
Just
Um,
more tension adding, I guess.
it's
I thought it would have more
unnecessary.
tension.
But all right, all right.
Good. Oh, I want to get your thoughts on just that concept of a machine, a program can be downloaded into like a person, I guess, like because the agents are
It
they
makes
can
sense with
communicate, but can be
the way
downloaded into
that
a
it
brain.
makes sense with the way that they use like they download shit, into their brains. So
Yeah,
and they with the way that if he assimilates into this guy, and then which then he becomes the guy in the Matrix, like the code version, and then they just have to load him back into his brain or whatever.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure if you think about it, it unravels pretty quickly, but I think it works fine. I don't got no. I thought it's cool. I think it's a cool idea.
yeah. I think it when I was a kid and even just young, like in college stuff, I didn't like it. Just it that part took me out of it where the Matrix is supposed to be where all the like the phantasmal shit happens and the real world is where everything sucks and just is reality. But I guess that's what like is supposed to be the big change on the
That's what's
sixth
breaking
version of the
down.
one
Yeah, that's
rather
what's.
than the repeats of everything else. But what happened with Neo to trigger him getting powers in the real world is what I'm still trying to um figure out. Like was it from Smith fucking touching his chest a little bit and almost taking him, or was it
No, I
just
don't think it's
his
trying to say
conversation with
anything
the
like
architect?
that. No, it's just he's
Um,
developing his oneness. His God
yeah.
power. I think
I just
that's
can't
all
help
it
but feel like
is.
it's got to be tied to something
I
in the
don't.
Matrix
I
to
think if it
activate
was
it.
something specific, it would say that it's something specific. It's not gonna.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna like bury it in whatever in
Mm.
obscurity. Um. All right. All right. I think that wraps
Oh,
it
yeah.
up for us. Next week we're gonna do Revolutions and the new one, Resurrections, which I'm gonna tell you something right now. And
You're gonna
if
watch it on
the
Max.
no, but people at home, if you don't want to hear anything about the new movie, then turn it off. This isn't a spoiler, but this is just broad strokes, early takes from the movie. I heard that the
Oh
new
no.
one, the new movie, does not have a ton of action and is mainly a love story.
Interesting.
And is slower.
Interesting.
And is it has been likened to The Last Jedi in the way that it subverts expectations and is a
Oh no.
commentary on the sequels and reboots of the modern era.
Oh, I did not like The Last Jedi.
I didn't hate it, but I do like subversion, and I do like fucking with people who just want the Matrix One again.
Well, I don't want The Matrix 1 again, which is why I didn't like the trailers for this movie. Because it
Yeah,
just looked like The Matrix again. So
I
I might like this.
I wanted to tell you that so you go into it with an open mind and don't try to force it into the shape you want it to be. It
Yeah.
still might suck ass. It still might be terrible, but I'm glad that I found that out because I would have even have done that. I'm like, what the fuck? When is the fighting gonna happen? I
Oh
heard that
man,
it's
I don't.
not like,
I'm
and I
so
also
nervous.
the last thing I heard, and this is a little more specific, is that the action that is in the film is like the modern edited close cropped action. It is not
Probably because
why.
everyone's old.
Yeah, that's what I figured. It's like they can't do choreographed martial arts now, so you have to do it that way.
Which sucks because that's all fucking Keanu Reeves did in John Wick was like gun martial arts, like and
Yeah, but
doing it like super
John
well.
Wick. It's like 10 years ago.
Well, the last movie came out a couple years, like only like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, like two
He's
years
getting
ago.
old, man.
Yeah,
He's
I know
getting
he's in his
old.
50s, but
Yeah, he looks
um,
ancient in that new Bill and Ted, the newer Bill and Ted.
which is wild because that's shot before this, a couple years, like a year or two before. Just shot like 2 years before this, and it's the beard. Keanu without his beard, he looks old,
Yeah, that's
old
what
as
it
fuck.
is. The beard is gave him a little more runway. But
Yeah.
all right, we will do that next week. And then so I was looking at the schedule here. And then after that, maybe we do Licorice Pizza. So I finally looked into it. Licorice Pizza is going to be in theaters everywhere on Christmas. So
No. Okay.
maybe we do that, and There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood the week after.
Cool.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all for sticking around. For those that have, make sure that you like and subscribe and do all the things that you're supposed to do. Tell a neighbor, tell a friend, and we'll see you again.
See you, everybody. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye.
Bleh.